Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Statesman podcast, where we analyze Zimbabwe's politics. So I'm your host, Nelson. And today we react to explosive developments in Zanu PF. And this concerns the succession battle within Zanu PF. And we are going to be tracing what triggered these shifts, the implications for elite power struggles, and what this means as the party heads towards the Congress, which is the next month in Mutare. So before I get started, I should just bring you into confidence into what happened yesterday. So yesterday, the party communicated to the party and to the public that Secretary General of the party, Obetumpov, has been shifted, which is a demotion, from being the Secretary General of the party to the Secretary for ICT. That position was held by Kazembe, by Ziyambi, and Ziyambi has been shifted to the Secretary for Legal Affairs, a position which was being held by Chinamasa, and Chinamasa has been shifted to the position of the Treasury of the Secretary for Treasury, who is responsible for the finances, and that position was previously held by Mudenda, who is the Speaker of Parliament. And now Mudenda is the one who is now occupying the office that was previously occupied by Obed Mpov, the Secretary General of the party. And Mudenda, Chinamasa, Ziyambi, they are all the president's people. They are all Mnangagwa's people. So I'm sure people can tell you don't need a political scientist to unpack what this means or why these people have been moved to where they are and why Obed Mpov has been demoted. He has been demoted. I'll explain that because he is a Mnangagwa. He is the vice president's man. He is so close to the vice president more than he is the president. And probably he has been delaying take some decisions which he was supposed to take, or to do some endorsements which would have favored the president and his people, and he was doing so in a bid of supporting the vice president. So that's what happened yesterday. So what we are witnessing isn't just factional squabbles within Zanu PF. It's a classic case of elite contestation and succession politics in a dominant party system. So I'm going to walk you through the timeline, unpack the strategies and interpret them using theories of patron clientelism, rent-seeking, and coercive versus remunerative power. So for those joining us for the first time, here is a quick recap. So in 2017, Mnangagwa was fired as vice president. He fled through Mozambique into South Africa and narrowly escaped arrest. And then General Constantino Chiwenga himself, then returning from China, he also evaded arrest thanks to the Army's commando unit. This was the prelude to the military intervention that forced Robert Mugabe out and it installed Mnangagwa as president. So a gentleman's agreement was reportedly struck. Mnangagwa would serve one term, then Chiwenga would take 2 terms, followed by SB Moyo. So in theory, Zanu PF succession was secured for the following 25 years. But then, like many plans, the plan unraveled. Many of the coup generals died suddenly, officially from COVID-19. And those suspicions still linger even up to now. We have seen some linkages to people from Belarus as having been key in eliminating these generals. Chiwenga himself, he survived poisoning and grew increasingly isolated from a political science perspective. This looks like it's elite paging through selective isolation, a strategy authoritarian incumbents often use to neutralize rivals without direct confrontation. So by 2025, social discontent resurfaced in Zimbabwe. Activists like Geza, who is a war veterans leader, he is clearly, because he openly speak about it, he's aligned with Chiwenga. He wishes to see Chiwenga being the president of the country. He have fled stayaways. The regime fears violent protests more than passive resistance. So this was taken seriously. So meanwhile, Sanyatwe, one of Chiwenga's last loyalists in the army, he was retired and shifted into a ministerial role. And this is a textbook case of reassigning coercive elites to civilian posts to reduce their threat. Now, parallel to these developments, a shadowy figure, initially known as Queen Bee, now identified as Kudakwashita Gray, he rose to prominence. He epitomizes state capture through business political networks. Now, starting with the ties to Solomon Mjuru, not Solomon Mjuru, he actually started with Vice President Muzenda. And then after the demise of Simon Muzenda, he tied himself to Solomon Mjuru, who was the army general, the chief of the army. And then when Solomon Mjuru passed away, Tagwire pivoted to Chiwenga and later to Mnangagwa. And this pivoting to Mnangagwa, it happened when General Chiwenga was ill and he looked like he almost lost his life. So it was common cause that he would shift to loyalties. Now, when the general came back, healthy again, alive, and very active in politics, it wouldn't have made any sense for Tagwire to turn back again from the president. The president is a powerful man, he's the most powerful person in the country, so it wouldn't have made sense for him to return back again to the vice president. So his strategy is straight out of patron-client theory. He bankroll political elites, he enrich allies, and in return, he secure monopoly access to state tenders. So his proteges, Scott Sakupkanya, Wikino Chivayo, and Temta Tungwarara, among others, are now among Zimbabwe's wealthiest young elites. They represent a new comprado bourgeoisie that thrives on proximity to power rather than market competitiveness. So fast forward to today, the general is a weekend man and Mnangagwa is surrounded himself with Queen Bee's contingent. The agenda appears to be twofold: loot without restraint, capture the president to safeguard the loot. Now, speculation abounds that some people claim that Mnangagwa wants to crown Tagwire, others suggest Valerio Sivanda. Though that is likely a pacifying carrot to keep the military in check, my assessment is Mnangagwa does not want either Chiwenga or Tagwire as his successor. He also does not want Valerio Sivanda as his successor. His ultimate ambition, I have always maintained this and I will always maintain this until I'm proved wrong. His ultimate ambition is dynastic succession, grooming his son for the throne, reviving the mythos of Emunu Mutapa's dynasty for political legitimacy. Now, to the letter announced yesterday following Chris Muchangwa's presser, number one, the reshuffles are designed to further isolate the vice president. Number two, Zanu PF as an institution is not autonomous. It is a personalized party machine, family under its control. Number three, the demotion of Obedumpof is a surgical strike against loyalists to Vice President Chiwenga. Now, from a strategic standpoint, AD for me has three scenarios. Option A, extend this term, which is already in motion via the 2030 agenda, backed by provincial endorsements. This happened last year on the Congress of last year, so we are about 1 year ever since that endorsement happened, but it's still difficult to move along with that motion. Option B is force an elective Congress, pit Chiwenga against Tagwire. Given the latest financial war chest, the vice president would be politically outbid. We all know he doesn't have as much financial resources as much as Tagwire has. So when it comes to who has more money, when it comes to an elective Congress, envelopes are going to exchange hands, and that is ultimately going to determine who's going to win in an elective Congress. And we know everyone is a prize. Everyone has a prize. Everyone has a prize. Everyone has a prize. So if it comes to that, definitely we know who's going to win. But it has ED wants it to get there. Because I don't see both of them as options that ED would like to see as the president. I think ED still is a plan that no one knows. only we can speculate with what we know about the man, and given the evidence that is on the ground, we can only speculate and predict what we think the future holds, what are his likely plans for the future. So option C is fire the general, which is highly risky. Mnangagwa would only do this if he were certain that Chiwenga isn't in control of the army, or his control of the army has been neutralized. So each option, it illustrates the incumbent's advantage. The advantage of being the current president, the advantage of being the first secretary of the party. So the ability, it gives you the ability to manipulate party structures, provincial chairpersons, and state resources also to secure outcomes, which is what is happening with all the tenders which are going to selected people. You just don't win those huge tenders. They have their own people who wins them. And we hear that many other people who are winning tenders, like those small value tenders, they are not really getting paid after getting the job done. So it's a mess what is happening. But here is the paradox. Authoritarian power games are prone to unintended consequences. I want ED himself to listen to this if he can. Authoritarian power games, they are prone to unintended consequences. Chris Muchangwa, you need to understand this. The very process of manipulating factions can spiral out of control quickly, because once violence, discontent, or a rogue military unit enters the picture, the calculus, it shifts dramatically. What you thought was in your control, it quickly goes out of your control, and what happens then, you don't have control over it. So I also even believe that even in 2017, the idea was to get to the 2017 Congress and then eliminate ED in the Congress. But things moved in a way that they quickly went out of control of anyone. They quickly went out of control of anyone, with the provinces declaring what they were declaring. With ministries within the party, the Minister of Youth, the Minister of, the pressure of the Minister of Youth, we know what the Minister of Women were planning to do and stuff like that. So things quickly went out of control, and what happened. So that is likely to happen in this scenario also. It can also be the same play that we saw in 2017. Because ultimately in Zimbabwe, the military remains the conda in power. What do you mean by conda in power? When you talk of power in politics, it's made up of three elements. You have got authority, you have got influence, then you have got force. Force is what is called conda in power, is the ultimate power. So in Zimbabwe, the military is the only one with this power. It is the only one with this power. So this cohesive pillar upon which both Mnangagwa and Chiwenga, their legitimacy, they rest on this pillar. So if the army fractures it or is successfully infiltrated by the Kananda faction, then Chiwenga becomes irrelevant. If not, the military card remains his last resort, probably his only resort, his one and only resort. So this is why I also think, okay, let me say, the fact that this may be the only resort of Chiwenga, it makes it easy for the other faction to target him, because they know where to target him. They know where his power is. His power is in the military. So if you're going to target anything, if you're going to infiltrate anything, it's the army. Once they successfully does that, then that means Chiwenga has been what? Has been neutralized. So it is a weakness for Chiwenga himself, which is why I think he had to move so fast, and I'm sorry, I think he had taken too much time to do that. I think around March, in April, it was in April and early May, on the episodes that we released during that time of 2025, late May, April 25, 2025, the episodes that we released then, I mentioned that Chiwenga does not have much time. He has at best 1 month to move using what we thought during that time we felt he still had power within the army, and I thought that was the time that was supposed to move. But now I think it's delayed too much, and a lot of things have changed. People have been infiltrated, people have been paid. So probably it's most likely for me, from where I stand, I think his power might have been neutralized within the army. I think people have received money and they have accepted that they are going to sit out whatever is going to come in the future, or if they're not going to sit out, they are going to support the president. That is what I think has happened. But that might not be as simple as that. So you see now, Mnangagwa Dengo's promises to commanders like Valerio Sivanda to keep them pacified, because what he is doing now, I read reports that it's either Tagure or Valerio Sivanda. Those are the top two contenders from where the president sits. That's what he wants to see happening. He wants either Tagure or Valerio Sivanda, but I don't think that is genuine, because I don't think he wants Tagure there. Secondly, I don't think he wants Valerio Sivanda. Why would you want Valerio Sivanda to be the president of the party? I don't see any single reason why he would want that to happen. So what I think is probably he has dangled that carrot to Valerio Sivanda, but the main reason why he has done that is to keep him pacified while he is eroding Chiwenga's leverage. But once the army is compromised, the general is cornered. But all evidence points to the fact that the army stands in the way of ED is the only thing that stands in the way of ED between constitutionalism and Vision 2030, or Project 2030. Let me call it Project 2030 because we already have Vision 2030, which is something else. So I'll call this Project 2030. So it has been a year since Resolution 1 passed, but what has been stopping it from being implemented? This is a question that someone posed to me. He said, if ED was in control of the army, if the army was not involved or was not, if the shadow of the power of the army was not lingering, why is it that resolution number 1 has not been passed, despite the fact that the party at last year's Congress, they agreed that the president will continue to 2030. So what has been holding this resolution from being implemented? What has been stopping the implementation? So speaking of the army, again, I would say ED, I hear is planning to retire Matatu and appoint him ambassador. But then who is he planning to replace Matatu with? And then we have got Otatafumane, who was promoted to be the chief of staff. But then this guy again, he has been out of the army for 20 years. So what I see him as is just the eyes within the army, but he has no real practical authority in the army. Chiwenga still has more power than all these people that have been appointed. So where does this leave us? Zimbabwe is witnessing, I think, a textbook case of succession uncertainty in a very dominant party regime. And Mnangagwa, what he wants is a dynasty. Tagure is playing for capture. And Chiwenga is struggling to stay relevant. And damn, he is. Now, the upcoming Congress will be very much pivotal. Will it rubber stamp the 2030 project or expose deeper fractures? Something come out yesterday on the episode that we released yesterday. I said on the things that we are supposed to watch out, I said let's watch out for any movements within the Politburo or within the Central Committee. And less than 10 hours after I released that episode, we already saw movements happening inside the Politburo. So I think the upcoming Congress will be very much pivotal to this game. Will it rubber stamp the 2030 project, or is it going to expose deeper fractures? So the key question I leave you with is this: does Chiwenga still have a viable card to play, or has he been reduced to a lame duck in Mnangagwa's authoritarian chessboard? So thank you so much for tuning into the Statesman Podcast. If you enjoyed this analysis, please subscribe, like, and share. Let me know in the comments. Is the general finished, or does he still hold the army as his trump card? Until next time, stay informed, stay critical. We move.